Welcome back to the Gore Guide, where we're on a journey to compile the definitive list of gore and splatter films. Today, we're taking a look at Apostle. Apostle is a 2018 film released on Netflix, written and directed by Gareth Evans, starring Dan Stevens, Michael Sheen, and Lucy Boynton. There have been a few cult-based horror films released in recent years that have divided opinion but been pretty successful. And while it's impossible not to lump Apostle in with these films, it's unfair to write it off as just another Wrong Turn or Midsommar. Writer-director Gareth Evans is more famous for making the excellent Indonesian action films Merantau, The Raid, and its sequel, The Raid 2, which is probably one of the best action martial arts films ever made. But aside from co-directing the amazing Safe Haven segment in VHS 2, this genre is a big change for him. So how has he coped making the jump from action to atmospheric horror? Well, let's take a look and find out. After finding out that his sister has been kidnapped and held for ransom by a mysterious cult, Thomas Richardson travels to a remote Welsh island to rescue her. Posing as a new convert, he learns that the cult worships a deity that fertilizes and keeps the island alive through blood sacrifices. But now the crops are failing, the livestock are producing deformed offspring, and the founding fathers are desperate for solutions. As faith diminishes and tensions increase, it becomes clear that some people will do anything for absolute power. For me, a period setting can be a real turn-off. It sometimes feels like it's the most important part of the film, and it simply has to be noticed. It normally works best when it feels natural, and that's how it's used here. It fits with the story and it never feels too forced. The introduction to the island setting looks gorgeous and the village itself looks amazing. The buildings and the surrounding environment all look very natural. The acting is another element that feels very natural. Everyone does a great job, but Michael Sheen is fantastic as Malcolm, one of the founding fathers. Director Evans creates a great atmosphere. The uneasiness and the sense of never really knowing what's going to happen leaves the viewer on the edge of their seat. And an increasing sense of dread and a gruesome third act help keep the film interesting throughout. The film in general is a bit of a slow burn, but it is constantly engaging, and the final 45 minutes get pretty gory. The effects are well done, and each of the kills feel very real. I also really like the general story and its meaning. Most films would be more than satisfied with just the theme of the abuse of Mother Nature, but Apostle makes it a bit more interesting by throwing in politics and religion. Showing man's perversion of anything noble or pure through greed and corruption is interesting, but the thing that really stands out is the way politicians use religion to control the masses. I also like the ending when Thomas becomes the new island god, fertilizing the ground around him with his blood while Malcolm sits watching and smiling, indicating the cyclical nature of things. Although the film is engaging throughout, at 2 hours 10 minutes it could have been a bit shorter. Some of the shots are a bit long and could have benefited from a little editing. Dan Stevens does a good job overall and is convincing in the lead role, but he says a lot of his lines through gritted teeth, which makes it a little bit difficult to hear what he's saying.
I was having a cigarette.
He also spends the first half of the film just looking suspicious and doing everything possible to make it pretty obvious that he's the outsider that everyone's looking for. As I mentioned before, the third act really picks up the pace and gets pretty gory, but a lot of the gore is just implied. There is a fair amount of blood and a couple of pretty gruesome deaths. Enough to shock the average viewer, but nothing too graphic. Even the infamous drill scene is mostly left to the imagination, only showing the aftermath. There are a couple of fight scenes, and this is when it really becomes apparent that this is a Gareth Evans film. It should come as no surprise that the fight scenes look fantastic, and while I appreciate the inclusion of action and the increase in pace, they just feel a little bit out of place with the rest of the film. They're just a bit too polished and choreographed and make it seem like everybody just knows how to fight. Something a bit more rough around the edges and gritty would have been more believable. And I was a bit confused by the grinder character, the man with the wicker basket on his head that force feeds entrails to the island goddess. I mean, he's good, don't get me wrong, and he adds some excitement to a couple of important scenes, but we have no idea who he is or why he's doing what he's doing, and I don't think it would have taken much to provide an explanation for his character.
And we showed them the glory and the love of God himself. And then they showed us the devil.
might seem like there's a lot of gore in Apostle, but in reality, there really isn't that much. Most of it is saved for the third act, and while there are a couple of memorable deaths, the extremity of them is mostly in your head. Luckily, the filmmaking is good enough to make them feel realistic, and they have more of an impact. So it gets 2.5 out of 5 for amount of blood, and 3.5 out of 5 for quality of effects. There's no denying the obvious comparison to The Wicker Man, but Apostle is one of the better cult horror films of recent years. It's atmospheric and gritty, and looks and sounds great. The slightly bloated running time could have been trimmed down, but it is engaging throughout, with a message that's relevant and important, but not forced down your throat. With the excellent Safe Haven segment from VHS2 and now this under his belt, Gareth Evans has shown that he has more to offer than just great action films, and I personally am excited to see what he'll do next. Apostle is a great film, and it is certainly one of the best horror films on Netflix. So it gets 4 out of 5 stars. Let me know in the comments below what your thoughts are on Apostle. If you want to check out my Gore and More list of films on Letterboxd, there's the link in the description below. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and click on the bell to keep up to date with new content. Thanks for watching, and until next video, have a bloody good time.